He took our light. He took our vibrancy. And for me, he took everything.
Cruel and evil. That's how the Bradenton police chief describes Keith Roberts Jr., who's accused of walking into a Bradenton medical lab yesterday and shooting 2 women. Police say one of the women was Roberts' ex-girlfriend. She died and her co-worker was seriously injured.
She answered that phone call thinking it was closure. 2 hours later, he walked straight to her desk and shot her in the face with a shotgun. And the part that will stop you cold, he had been planning that moment for 2 years. This is not a story about a man who snapped. This is a story about a man who decided, who sat with that decision, lived with it, breathed with it. And then one ordinary Thursday afternoon, he acted on it. Myshayla Burnham was 29 years old. She was somebody's sister, somebody's best friend. And most importantly, she was somebody's mama. And on what should have been just another work day, her ex-boyfriend, Keith Roberts Jr., made sure it was her last. Let me tell you something. By the time this is over, you are going to understand exactly how we get here, how a relationship turns into a countdown, and how a woman sitting at her desk, doing her job, ends up fighting for her life and losing. Myshayla, or Myshayla, as her sister Brianna called her, was the kind of woman who lit up whatever room she walked into. Brianna described her as the bright light and vibrancy of their family. She was raising a 6-year-old boy on her own, working at a medical processing lab in Bradenton, Florida, showing up every single day and doing what mothers do, building something. Keith Roberts Jr. was 29 as well. On paper, he looked stable. He had a job as a security guard over at Manatee Memorial Hospital, wore a uniform, had a badge. His whole role was to protect people, period. The two of them had been in a long-term relationship, years together. And for a while, maybe it looked like something real. But the inside of that relationship was a whole different story. Keith himself would later admit that his jealousy and his behavior drove things into the ground. He wasn't just difficult to be with, he was controlling. And when Myshayla finally decided she had had enough, when she made the call to end it, that's when things shifted into something dangerous. Moving on, because here is where you need to pay attention. By August of 2025, the relationship was over. Myshayla had ended things and was moving forward with her life. She had her son, she had her job, she had people who loved her. She was not looking back. Keith, on the other hand, he was not moving on. He was sitting in whatever thoughts he had, and those thoughts were getting darker and darker. He would later tell investigators that he had been fantasizing about killing her for 2 full years. Not weeks, not months, 2 years. That means even while they were still together, while she was still in that relationship thinking things might work out, he was already going there in his mind. Like, let that sink in for a second. She had no idea. How could she? You don't look at the person sleeping next to you and think they are rehearsing your murder in their head. You just don't. Then came the phone call. On the morning of the shooting, Keith reached out to Myshayla, and she picked up. They talked for close to 2 hours. Now, we don't know exactly what was said on her end, what she was hoping for, whether she thought it was going to be a final conversation, some kind of peace, some kind of goodbye. But we know what it meant for him. For Keith, that 2-hour call was confirmation. It told him what he already feared, that she was done, that she had truly moved on, that she was not coming back. And instead of accepting that, instead of letting her live her life, he made a decision. He was going to her job. Anyways, here is the detail that will make your stomach drop. The medical lab where Myshayla worked had no signage outside. None. If you didn't know it was there, you would walk right past it. And even once you got inside the building, there were multiple offices. You would have no idea which one to go to. But Keith knew. He knew exactly which office, exactly which door, exactly which desk, because he had been there before. Because this was a woman he had spent years with. He had that information stored, and on this day, he used it like a map straight to her. Oh, so now, it was never random. It was never impulsive. This man had a destination in mind before he even started the car. He drove to that lab armed with 2 weapons, a shotgun and a handgun. And he walked through that door with one purpose. It was just before 1 o'clock in the afternoon. My Shayla was at her desk. Her co-worker, a woman named Summer Freitag, was right there beside her at the adjoining desk. Just 2 women doing their jobs. The kind of Thursday afternoon that feels like every other Thursday afternoon. Until it doesn't. Keith walked in. He didn't hesitate. He didn't stop. He went straight to where he knew she would be because he already knew this place like the back of his hand. And he raised that shotgun and opened fire on my Shayla at point-blank range. The Bradenton police chief, Josh Kramer, described it like this, and I need you to picture this. He said,
directly opened fire at point-blank range, closer than you and I likely are right now, with a shotgun.
That is how close he was standing to her when he pulled the trigger. Not across a room, not from a distance, right there. Multiple shots, with a shotgun. Girl. And because the 2 desks were so close together, the blast didn't stop with my Shayla. The pellets caught Summer too. She had done absolutely nothing. She was just there, just working. And now she was caught in the middle of something she had no part in. Keith then turned the handgun on Summer, a .40 caliber, and shot her 4 more times. 4. Summer Freitag took shotgun blast and 4 handgun rounds that afternoon. And somehow, she survived. The police chief said it plainly. She's lucky to be alive, really is. First responders got to her and put 3 tourniquets on her body just to keep her from bleeding out on that floor. She went into surgery. She had a long road ahead of her, but she made it. My Shayla did not. By the time it was over, my Shayla Burnham, the bright light, the single mama, the 29-year-old woman who had done nothing but try to move forward with her life, was gone. And Keith? He walked back out, got in his car, and drove away. Like he just left. Like he hadn't just destroyed everything in that room. Now here is where the people inside that building became the reason this man did not get far. Those witnesses, the people who saw what happened or heard what happened in that lab, they came forward immediately. They gave police a description of Keith's vehicle before he could even get out of the area. The 911 calls started coming in, the description went out, and law enforcement moved fast. 22 minutes. That is all it took. 22 minutes after those first 911 calls, officers spotted Keith's car crossing the DeSoto Bridge heading into Palmetto, and they stopped him. Right there on that bridge, took him into custody. And when they pulled him over, he already knew why. Police say he made statements that made it clear he understood exactly what was happening and why he was being stopped. No confusion, no act. He knew. Police Chief Kramer had something to say about those witnesses, and he meant every word.
Those witnesses are heroes. You know, they stood up and said, I know information on this. Yeah. Be alive. Really is. And we're all praying for her to safe recovery.
And he was right. Because without them moving that fast, who knows how far Keith gets? Back at the lab, investigators started putting the full picture together. The no signage detail. The fact that you would never even know that office existed unless someone told you, confirmed what they already suspected. This was not a man who stumbled in. The spokesperson put it plainly. Whoever walked in that door would have known exactly where to go to commit this crime. And when detectives sat down with Keith and started asking questions, that is when the story got even colder. He admitted the jealousy. He admitted the abuse within the relationship. He admitted that for 2 years he had been sitting with thoughts of killing her. 2 years of fantasizing about this moment, and that final 2-hour phone call that morning was what pushed him over. In his own words, it became his breaking point, confirmation that she was truly done with him, that she would never come back, that she might move on and be with someone else. And so he decided, if he could not have her, nobody would. But the detail that will stay with you, the one that says everything about who this man is what he said when investigators were done asking questions about the shooting itself. He looked at them and asked, "How many people died? 1 or 2? Let that settle." He did not know if Summer had survived. And the way he asked that question, not with panic, not with regret, just asked it like he was checking a score. Make it make sense, because I genuinely cannot. Keith Roberts Jr. was charged with first-degree murder and attempted first-degree murder with a firearm. He was held with no bond. When he appeared before a judge at his first appearance, people in that courtroom watched him closely, looking for something. Remorse, shock, anything. He showed almost nothing. And then, when investigators pressed him further, when they gave him the chance to reflect on what he had done, he said something that removed any last question about who this man is. "Even if I could do today over again, I would still kill her." That was his answer. Not silence, not tears, that. So what? So what was any of it for? The relationship, the years, the child she was raising, the life she was building? None of it mattered to him. What mattered was that she had chosen to leave, and he could not live with that. His arraignment was set, the case moved forward, and Keith Roberts Jr. remained behind bars, which is exactly where he belonged. While Keith was sitting in a police car on that bridge, while detectives were walking through that lab piecing together what happened, my Shayla's sister Brianna was getting the kind of news that changes a person forever. And here is the detail that is going to hurt you.
Last time I spoke to her was at 12:51.
So like that Thursday.
On Thursday.
Yeah.
And it happened either right then or shortly after.
The shooting started at 12:48, 3 minutes. That is the margin between the last time Brianna heard her sister's voice and the moment everything was taken from her. 3 minutes, and my Shayla was already gone by the time that call connected, or just barely hanging on. We don't know exactly what was said, but we know it was the last time. And when Brianna finally found the words to speak publicly about losing her sister, she said this.
He took our light. He took our vibrancy. And for me, he took everything.
That is it. That is the whole story in 3 sentences. Not the shooting, not the investigation, not the courtroom. This. A sister standing in the wreckage of a grief she never should have had to carry, trying to put into words what it means to lose the person who made every room feel warmer just by being in it. My Shayla was somebody's bright light, and a man who claimed to love her decided to put that light out because he could not control it. Anyways, let's talk about the little boy. My Shayla's 6-year-old son is growing up without his mother now. 6 years old. He is old enough to know something is wrong, old enough to ask questions, but not old enough to understand any of the answers. And that child did nothing. He did not choose any of this. He just woke up one day and his mama did not come home. Strangers, people who never even met my Shayla, started pooling money together on GoFundMe to try and build something for that little boy's future. Because that is what happens when a mother is taken too soon. The community steps in and tries to fill a hole that can never actually be filled. Moving on, because the community felt this beyond just that family. Nearby businesses, people who worked just feet away from that lab, were shaken to their core. A dermatologist right next door described that day as a very scary situation. Locking their doors, moving patients to back rooms, peeking out windows trying to understand what was happening outside.
Made sure we locked everything up. We had a patient who'd already come in, so we moved her to kind of a back waiting area, and we were kind of trying to look out the window to see what was going on.
After everything settled, conversations started about active shooter drills, about being prepared, about the fact that this kind of violence does not stay contained to the people it targets. It bleeds into every office, every waiting room, every person who was just trying to get through a Thursday.
And this could happen to anyone where you have, a relation to yourself where someone is just angry and does something like that. So we're thinking of holding some active shooter drills at our office just in case something like this happens again.
An instructor who trains people for exactly these situations put it plainly.
And more than probably 65% are over before law enforcement even arrives. So people really need to understand these strategies to be able to get through those critical initial minutes before law enforcement arrives.
Which means the only people who can make a difference in those first moments are the people already in that room. The witnesses at that lab understood that. They moved fast. They spoke up. And because of them, Keith Roberts did not get another hour of freedom. But let me tell you something, and I mean this sincerely. None of that should have been necessary. Summer Freitag should not have been fighting for her life on a surgical table. Those witnesses should not have had to carry those images. That little boy should not be going to sleep every night without his mama. And Brianna should not have had to bury her sister. All of it, every single piece of this, traces back to one thing. Keith Roberts Jr. believed that my Shayla belonged to him. Not that he loved her, not that he wanted what was best for her. He believed she was his. And when she exercised her right to walk away, to choose herself, to choose her son, to choose a life that did not include him, he decided she did not get to make that choice. That is not love. That has never been love. Love does not show up at your job with a shotgun. Love does not spend 2 years imagining your death. Love does not look a detective in the eye and say, "I would still kill her." That is possession. That is control. And it is more common than most people want to admit. So if you are watching this and something in this story feels familiar, the jealousy that felt a little too intense, the anger that came out of nowhere when you tried to leave, the feeling that you had to manage someone else's emotions just to stay safe, please do not wait for it to escalate. The people who loved my Shayla did not see this coming in time, but the red flags were there. They are always there. My Shayla Burnham was 29 years old. She was a mother. She was her sister's light. She was someone who showed up to work on a Thursday morning and deserved to go home that evening. She did not get that. But her story? Her story is not going to be quiet. Not on this channel. Not today. I said what I said. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You do not have to wait until it gets worse.